take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really, thank you both for your testimony. There's certainly a lot to think about there, and I want to make sure that we thank you both and your teams for all the work they've done on this issue, for continuing to seek ways to help our agencies improve our oversight and the implementation of our assistance program. And Dr. Melito, I'll start some questions with you, if I might. Tell us about why it's important for individuals and organizations operating in Syria to conduct a risk assessment. And if you could tell us how the UN internal control framework compares to ours. How do the requirements differ?
Very good. A risk assessment is a jargony phrase. It's pretty obvious. It's management basically trying to understand the challenges that their employees are having in the field. In this case, it's generally a procurement and logistics exercise where they need to understand which particular players they're using for buying things, storing things, moving things. And in an environment of Syria, there's a lot of complicating factors and a lot of heavy risks. So a risk assessment would really be a diagnostic on looking at what exactly is the situation on the ground, what are they facing, and then recognizing that some of this is very risky, and then mitigating that by trying to make sure that there are oversight controls and just a good situational awareness on the part of management. That's why risk assessments are essential. In terms of the internal control framework of the UN, it is very similar. They're using international auditing standards, which are mirror in a lot of ways the ones that the US government uses. So when we have dialogues with them, we're pretty much on the same page. They are required to do risk assessments like the US government is. So there was no mismatch in discussions with them. They have the same requirements in that area.
Well, thank you. And all programs and just about anything we do are going to have at least some loss as a result of waste, fraud, abuse, diversion. It's sad to say, but it's reality-based. Did either state or USAID provide you with a number on how much they believe is being lost to waste, fraud, abuse, or diversion? And you get a sense from the agencies that they expect a certain amount to be lost as the cost of doing business, and that they may have a formal or informal percentage they believe is acceptable?
So GEO's perspective on this, and this is the auditing community as well, is that you need reasonable assurance. Now, reasonable assurance is something which has to be sort of understood at the corporate level, and they need to really think about where their particular tolerance is. But we're not talking about absolute assurance. So I just want to drive that home, because absolute assurance would be too expensive, and it probably would prevent the humanitarian mission from going forward. In terms of the magnitude of the losses, I do not think USAID or state have really any inkling on that. I don't think they've done the work to address that, nor have they thought about what is their risk tolerance. So I think that's a dialogue that they need to have moving forward.
Thank you. And Inspector General, I know you can't really go into details about the individuals and the entities, because in a lot of these cases we're discussing ongoing investigations. But I did want to ask you a few questions about how that works when USAID says, okay, this implementing partner or this program is problematic, we need to cut ties. Because the vast majority of our assistance to for Syria, for the humanitarian crisis, does go through the UN. Obviously, there will be some overlap on implementing partners and partner organizations. So when USAID suspends these individuals, these entities, these programs, they're no longer eligible to receive any U.S. government awards, correct?
Yeah, for a period of time.
And do we share this information with the UN or other organizations and implementing partners? And if so, what actions do they take, or what actions do we expect them to take?
Let me make a few comments with regard to your question. First of all, I'm very proud of the work that our Office of Special Agents and Investigations have done in this crisis. When the Overseas Contingency Operation was activated in 2014, proactive efforts went into the region, identified all of the implementers that were in that region, conducted 32 fraud awareness briefings with, over 400 individuals, including USAID, DART teams, implementers, public international organizations. From that, these allegations have come forward. We opened cases, and we found fraud. USAID's response to that has been very, very promising. And what I will say to that is that we have ongoing communications with the various bureaus affected by this, whether it be OFTA, whether it be Food for Peace, regarding what we found. And they have taken actions in terms of suspensions, debarments, special conditions put on awards, employee terminations, and they've done so oftentimes without having a full record of our investigation. And just to make a point of that, it's very difficult to sit down with organizations or with employees and say you're being suspended or you're being terminated without the full underpinnings of an investigation. So this speaks to what USAID proper has done in response to that, and they've taken approximately 35 actions as a result of our work. With regard to the UN, what happens is, and as you noted in your statement, so much of the money flows through UN organizations, these PIOs, as we refer to them. It's absolutely important because we do not have independent oversight of those operations. That information is shared. Our Office of Investigations put together, and I know you asked me about this when we met the other day, and I'm proud of it, so if I may hold it up for all of you, a fraud prevention and compliance handbook just for the region that goes out to everyone. This includes our UN counterparts. It includes all of the NGOs. It tells them what to look for. Our Syria Investigations Work Group, which we stood up, is a venue to actually brief the UN, our UN partners with its the World Food Program on the fraud we're seeing. We share vendors lists where we've had issues, and we put, I would say, not only them on notice, but pressure to say, you're likely working with the same implementers, now here, have at it. So you get the pressure points applied from a number of different perspectives, and I just wanted to take that moment because I'm very, very proud.
I'm glad that you did, because I can foresee an instance where maybe these guys are defrauding the UN or other implementing partners as well, or perhaps even the UN continues to work with them after we provide these agencies with our information. And just to finish up with the UN, perhaps I'll ask this of both of you, how does working through the UN impact our ability to exercise the kind of oversight that we would require if we were working with implementing partners directly in terms of things like transparency and accountability? How does that change?
So we do have audit authority over implementing partners. We do not have audit authority over the UN. That said, so there we go. I said we do have audit authority over implementing partners, but we do not have audit authority over UN agencies. That said, I've done, over the last 10 years, a series of reports involving UN agencies where I have generally gotten excellent cooperation. And I think that's in recognition of how important the U.S. is as a donor. And I think they want to cooperate with the U.S. government. So I can't point at a case where I wasn't ultimately able to get the information that GAO needed to do its work. So while it's an indirect process, ultimately I think it's been a successful process.
I would just add to that again to underscore our Syria Investigations Working Group. We also have reached out sort of on a one-on-one basis. I just recently met with the World Food Program Inspector General. I know that he was in town working with folks in the Bureau as well, and the pressure is really being applied, saying you're going to be working with these same implementers, with these same vendors. We're relying on you to provide this aid. And I think it's also important to point out the very important role that the UN plays. They provide these bulk items in terms of humanitarian assistance into the region. They can have staff in Syria. You know, we need them. They provide a huge role and help us achieve this mission. We just need to stay on top of them, make sure that the right oversight, the monitoring, the internal controls are established, and that USAID puts some pressure on them to do it. I will tell you, you can be assured we'll be on it.
I understand that. Congratulations to both of you for the great work that you do. It's important to carry that message to the U.S. taxpayer. Thank you. And with that, my good friend